Tēnā koutou, welcome to the All Report, animal rights news for Aotearoa New Zealand. After a series of animal abuse scandals such as live baiting, unreported deaths and giving dogs methamphetamine to run faster, a government report was conducted on Greyhound Racing and is now being studied closely by Ardern's government. Furthermore, Green Party animal welfare spokesperson Chloe Swarbrick is currently working on a members' bill to end Greyhound Racing in Aotearoa. Adding to the pressure, a 37,000 signature petition to ban commercial greyhound racing was presented to Parliament last week, organised by greyhound advocate Aaron Cross. Reports say it's the most supported petition to reach Parliament in years. No surprise, considering the aroha we all have moa tātou kuri. The New Zealand Animal Law Association and SAFE are back in court with the government, and this time they're going after Rodeo. SAFE's Deborah Ashton went on the AM show to discuss how Rodeo places animals under unnecessary and unreasonable stress.
In the case of Rodeo, well, in the case...
They've got a vet. They've got to have a vet at every rodeo. Electric prods are banned. Tail twisting's banned. There's no pyrotechnic displays allowed. They're banned. There's no sheep riding. That's banned. There must be a vet at every rodeo.
This follows last year's successful case against farrowing crates, where the High Court determined that farrowing crates for mother pigs were unlawful and accordingly directed the government to consider phasing them out. SAFE also launched a campaign to end colony cages, which were brought in to replace the previously banned battery cages. SAFE's campaign manager, Jessica Chambers, said there were 2.3 million hens currently living in these cages, pointing out that each hen only has the space of about an A4 piece of paper. Hens can't stretch their wings, express normal hen behaviour, or comfortably rest. Agriculture Minister Damien O'Connor said the government had no plans to ban colony cages at this stage, arguing the standards take into account international best practice. What a load of shit. You can find SAFE's petition on their website. Though the government has promised to end live export within 2 years, animal advocates continue to add pressure to end the industry sooner. Activists came out in Timaru to protest Al Kuwait, the purpose-built slave ship transporting over 15,000 cows to China. The ban, which is supported by the Greens, has faced some pushback from the farming industry and their allies, with ACT MP Mark Cameron, a Northland dairy farmer, saying the government's ban was purely an emotive and ideological decision. In a turn of events, the New Zealand Council for the Care of Animals in Research and Teaching invited NZAVS to give presentations at this year's conference, an event NZAVS has previously protested against. An animal research openness agreement was launched during the event, a voluntary agreement signed by over 20 institutions promising to be more open with how they use animals. As Tara Jackson said, the true extent of its impact will be measured in time as we see how open institutes are truly willing to be. Also, is your KiwiSaver funding animal exploitation? NZAVS are encouraging Kiwis to try the scheme Pathfinder, saying it avoids companies and/or industries causing environmental or social harm, including animal testing, factory farming, or other forms of animal exploitation. For more information on how you can switch, visit nzavs.org.nz. Pathfinder is donating $100 to NZAVS for every person who makes the switch before the end of August. T's and C's apply. Environmental and animal advocates once again exposed winter grazing practices by documenting animals living and giving birth in mud throughout the winter season.
A pregnant cow struggling to move through deep mud. This footage, given exclusively to News Hub by animal rights campaigners, shows winter grazing in Otago and Southland.
We're seeing animals forced to live in mud. There's nowhere dry to lie down, no shelter. It's horrific.
There's been little change this year since the government delayed implementing recommended winter grazing standards. Conveying the government's low standards for animal welfare, Damien O'Connor said he was pleased with how the winter grazing practices have gone this year. Over in Tokyo, the Olympics once again made a spectacle of dominating animals. However, this year's events sparked global conversations around the ethics of using horses for sport, after Saint Boy was punched and repeatedly whipped for refusing to take part, with the rider's coach being disqualified for striking him. Saint Boy's caregivers have reported that he's recovering well from the ordeal. However, not all horses used in the Olympics survived, as Jet Set was sadly killed after an injury. In Grassroots news, many different actions have taken place across the country as part of our ongoing efforts to tackle animal oppression. Activists used a range of peaceful methods to support their advocacy, such as showing footage of industrial abuse, advertising documentaries, and using music.
Set them free, let the animals life free. There exists an answer, set them free. Set them free.
If you'd like to join these groups, you can find their contact details on our website. Michael Nelson Davis from Auckland Vegan Actions talked to us about a new format being used in Tāmaki Makaurau.
So this action is called the victim's perspective, and it's just an action just like any other cube really, but instead we have a TV stand and a sign that says animals deserve to be abused, prove me wrong. And that sign just creates a really solid base on starting a conversation about animal rights and veganism. So there's a lot of people who get quite triggered about it. Good target market is vegetarians. They really disagree with the sign. So yeah, in terms of talking to those people, the more ignited they are by it, the better the conversation is eventually. So yeah.
Meanwhile, horse racing and jumps racing protests are ongoing as activists advocate to end the exploitation and killing of horses for entertainment. Unfortunately, protesters were physically and verbally abused during the Powerworx Opunake Cup Day protest.
I don't give a f***. There's a footpath. Yeah, want to have a go? Want to have a go? Want to have a go? Show what's fucking me. So what? One time of the protest, it's a peaceful. That's what you're going to get. Any what's a good minute.
Police were called to the scene and luckily no humans were hurt. Save vigils continue to be an important cornerstone of our activism, with protesters bearing witness to animals outside slaughterhouses across the country. Having gone through the calving season, activists witnessed countless infant baby cows being sent to slaughter. They documented the inherent cruelty of the dairy industry as truckloads of discarded babies could be seen in public spaces, along with dying mothers and babies on farms. In other dairy news, a 6-part series, Milk and Money, was released on TVNZ On Demand. Receiving over $360,000 in funding from NZ On Air, it follows Reid journalist Baz McDonald as he explores what they call the true cost of dairy farming in Aotearoa. The result is a very informative series showing a range of issues caused by our primary export giant. It's being praised by some for its balanced, empathetic approach to highlighting the industry's sobering issues. Though we couldn't help but feel like industry got let off too easy.
Is our current agricultural system sustainable?
Our current agricultural system is very sustainable.
In mid-July, tractors drove across the main streets of Aotearoa as part of the Howl of a protest, run by Groundswell NZ, who described themselves as a grassroots rural movement. Protesters demanded that the government scrap regulations aimed at the protection of freshwater and native habitats, and the ute tax. In response, Jacinda Ardern said that the concerns of the rural community are well known to the government. Although the protest received mostly positive coverage, it was impossible to ignore the array of misogynistic and racist messages which littered the protest, reminding us of the colonial roots of the industry built on the theft of whenua Māori. At the same time, floods ravaged the west coast, taking an unknown number of lives. 1,400 mostly pregnant cows drowned on one farm alone, while another farm reported a loss of 700 lives. News media heavily focused on the distress this caused farmers, whilst little attention was given to the animals who died in captivity or the issues that caused these floods. Meanwhile, the war on wild animals waged on stronger than ever, with the latest tactic of demonisation blaming wild animals for eating up our carbon sinks, calling for more mass slaughter of wildlife to reduce our country's emissions. Once again, wild animals bear the burden of human actions, as responsibility is deflected from animal agricultural emissions and land clearance. And thanks to increased funding through the Jobs for Nature program, DOC invested $700,000 into training recreational deer hunters. DOC have also begun their yearly tar hunt, with 1,400 individuals being shot in South Westland National Park alone. In Northland, complaining farmers have led to renewed calls for animal control officers to once again carry firearms, so that they can shoot, quote, marauding dogs that have been slaughtering sheep and goats on farmland. Toa, a stranded baby orca who captured hearts around the world, unfortunately passed away despite our best efforts to reunite them with their pod. This ignited important conversations about our relationships with other animals, with bioethics lecturer Mike King calling on us to reflect on what our treatment of Toa might mean for our ethical obligations toward wild animals generally. Annie Potts, professor in human animal studies, said these examples highlighted speciesism in New Zealand society, saying, "We call ourselves animal lovers here, but in reality we reserve our love, compassion and empathy for extraordinary species, like whales, which we can celebrate saving." In lighter news, to promote dairy-free goodness, the Vegan Cheese Awards, the first of its kind in Aotearoa, were run by the Vegan Society, which they say they're turning into an annual event.
I think cheese was the ultimate one, because I feel like we've, the vegan meats and things for the pies and things, and the pastry, they kind of clocked on how to do that quite early on. I think cheese is the pinnacle. I don't think there is anything that's next. I think cheese is the top. Cheese was the holy grail that we needed to overcome. Was our like Waterloo? No, I don't know what reference I'm using. Cheese was the hard one to do, and I think we've done it.
More Miraka Kore news, Raglan Food Co, the biggest dairy-free yogurt producer in Aotearoa, has just upgraded their production with a new $1 million factory, one with the capacity to produce 12 tonnes of dairy-free yogurt per day. Here's hoping this growth makes their products more accessible. For our final story, this year's Animal Rights March has been announced for the 20th of November to be hosted by Wellington Vegan Actions in the capital, Te Whanganui Atara. Last year's march was supported by around 500 animal rights advocates, which concluded at Parliament with speeches from different groups and individuals from within our movement, as well as support from the Green Party of Aotearoa. Fingers crossed COVID-19 stays the hell away, as we're looking forward to attending this hikoi mō ngā kararehe. That's all the pānui for now. Hei kōnā e ngā iwi, mā tini, mā mano, karapa te whai. Kia ora mai tātou.